guys, welcome back. I wanted to let everybody know that we have an awesome guest today. Katelyn M. Stewart is a recording artist, a media presence with YouTube, and I think she's going to show you some really cool ways of thought on how to promote your business in this crazy world that we're living in right now. But first, what's in your coffee cup, Ted? Well, we're doing espresso today. Indian River Roasting Company is a sponsor of this great channel. And I want to thank them for we had an awesome video last week. If you haven't checked it out, with our cigar show with Carl and Ted's cigar show, we had Pete, the major artisan that was on a couple of days ago. It was just phenomenal. In any case, try some espresso when you go to the description and look for Indian River Roasting Company under my description on the YouTube channel. Once you like, share, and subscribe, all that stuff, and use promo code Caffeinate 2020. It's Caffeinated 2020, and they will give you 10% off anything you buy. So what I'd like to do is bring Katelyn in. She's like I said, a force to be reckoned with, and I'm going to really find out exactly who she is, and I think you guys are going to learn. So hopefully you brought your notepads. So let me bring her in. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you doing today?
Good. We usually start out the conversation is my shtick is, when did you land on this planet, Katelyn?
Well, when I landed sometime in the early 90s, I won't tell you which year.
Okay.
Yeah, I was.
Fair enough.
I always tell people that I was born in the back of a car, but that's not true. I was born in Lafayette. My parents were, I guess, going to school up there.
Mm-hmm.
They were pretty good friends. They met in the military, and then they both pursued careers in the medical field. So yeah, I'm a Lafayette, Indiana baby.
Awesome. Cool. My mother was a Hoosier, so we're
Nice.
It's good. A lot of my family are from, I think I told you before, Evansville down that way.
Yeah.
And then up all the way up to Terre Haute. So they came through Detroit when they settled Detroit and all that, back with Cadillac, and then they all, moved to the next towns or whatever, Terre Haute and all the rest of the Catholic population was the conquest, the conquest of Indiana, I guess. In any case, well, that's cool. So Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like growing up? I mean, small town? Was it what was it like?
The funny thing is I say I was born in Lafayette, to my parents, but that quickly turned into a separation. So we actually moved around my entire childhood. So I never actually lived in Lafayette, maybe for 6 months or so.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I lived in Missouri, Alaska, Florida, several different places. So it was. I always say I'm a medical brat, not a military brat. So, honestly, I don't know. I don't feel like I ever really lived in a town long enough to say like I'm from here. I experienced the culture for very long. I think this is the longest I've ever lived anywhere. I've lived in Vincennes,
mm-hmm.
Indiana, small little French town.
Sure.
For about 4 years now. So.
Yeah, that's and that's Vincennes is actually I used to go. My aunts were nuns, so we would go to the different convents. We have to go to Terre Haute, or we'd go to Vincennes or Evansville, Jasper, Indiana. So we would go there in the summers. Sometimes the worst part of the summer and the super heat, and there was always pig farms or something. Beautiful, beautiful convents, gorgeous. But there's a certain type of it's a very interesting thing, like in towns like Vincennes, though, because there's certain things that you guys do, whether it's driving around the center. I don't know if they have the courthouse. I remember when we were down there, they had a courthouse, and that was something that we did down there. We had to, for whatever reason, cruising. I was a teenager or whatever. It doesn't matter where I was cruising anyway. But Vincennes always was a cool little town, though. It wasn't like, you don't think podunk. It might be different living there. For me, it was coming from Detroit. Mm-hmm. It was different, but it was kind of nice in a way.
Yeah, so. It's an interesting town. It has a lot of weird history.
Yeah,
mysterious tunnels underneath the town. All kinds of bizarre things happened here.
That's cool. Yeah. What was your first job growing up? If you moved all over, what was your age groups when you moved to Missouri and then Alaska and Florida and all that stuff?
So I was back and forth in Missouri and Indiana till I was about 10. Okay. And then we moved to Alaska, and I spent a couple years up there, and then we and then I spent a lot of time in Florida, but moving around different parts of Florida. My
Yeah.
first job, I I started working actually for this thing called it was a Braille library.
Oh, cool.
I sorted audiobooks for the blind.
That's kind of cool.
It was a great job. Yeah, the people were they were really nice, you know, and I mean,
Yeah.
really, I had to rewind things because everything was on, you know, cassette. So it was a really neat job. It was really cool. And then I started doing oh, I don't know. I worked for Little Caesars for a while, got
Mm.
fired from there. I have a problem with authority, I guess.
Yeah.
And then I started doing I waited tables at a Hawaiian restaurant called Ohana, and
Mhm.
they're the nicest people. They're still in Clearwater, Florida. They're
That's
really, really great people.
yeah, I know Clearwater real well. Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I was technically raised in or I went to high school in Dunedin, which is
Mm.
a little Scottish town. We have bagpipes and everything, but
Mm.
it's right next to Clearwater. But yeah, you know, I guess being a young adult in Florida it was really nice, you know. There was
Yeah,
lots of interesting things going on. A lot of
sure.
trouble to get into as well, but
Yeah, well,
but
it's part of the game. It's treacherous anywhere, but especially
yeah,
by an ocean, right?
right,
Um,
exactly.
what was so you were a teenager then, I would assume, obviously.
Yeah, like
Uh, what
16,
was what
17.
was that like during like spring break when people would come down there and just, it was good for money, I'm sure, but annihilating you
You
know.
know, it's funny when you live there, none of my friends, we never went to the beach during the day. It was kind of like the taboo thing, like
Mhm.
no one wanted to be around tourists. So we would actually all go after midnight and go hang out at the beach and whatnot. But yeah, the money was really good.
Mm.
Um, I met a lot of really interesting people. Some Krishnas like
Yeah,
gave me their card and they were like, if you ever need anything, give us a call. And I was like, yeah, man, thanks. Thanks a
sure, no
lot.
problem.
I will. I still have their card. I've never called them, never been in that much
Okay.
trouble, but
It's an interesting thing. I've been to a couple of their, just from business-wise, I've been
yeah,
around a lot of Krishnas and, they have a lot of them have estates, these
yeah,
big architectural,
yeah.
megalith homes that have been left to them by their, uh, their investors, I guess, is the best way to put it, and, yeah,
Mhm.
so yeah, I get it, but it's
And
cool.
yeah. Yeah,
Cool.
it was a strange thing, and being in Clearwater or near Clearwater, we had a lot of the Scientologist
Sure.
communities, and that was an interesting
Yeah.
thing to get into as well. And not that I ever joined, but I became friends with quite a few and went to a few meetings.
Mm.
Not for me, not really. Like I said, I have a thing with authority. I don't
Yeah,
do well,
right, right.
but but yeah, lots of interesting. Because I mean, I was raised Catholic
Yep.
until later on, until I was about 9. My mother
Mhm,
married someone who was not Catholic, so
mhm.
she became, I suppose, Baptist. So I grew up in a very um,
Structured?
yeah, structured in
Sure.
that kind of way. So it was interesting to branch out and meet different types of people with
Yeah,
different types of religious beliefs, you know?
yeah. That's, my wife was raised, in a General Baptist fashion. So for me, it was kind of culture shock, for her because we were all dancing, drinking, having
Yeah.
Catholic and Catholic, having a good time of it. Even the nuns were,
Yeah,
even my aunts were drinking beer, whatever, when we're at weddings and stuff. But for her, it wasn't really dancing. It wasn't, so it's a different paradigm. Nothing wrong with it. It's just a different belief system.
Mhm.
And yeah, I understand. I get it. I understand it. Um, so when did music come about? Let's talk to you, as far as singing and
Sure. So my mother is a, classically trained pianist,
mm,
and I was a difficult child to teach, back to the authority
mm,
thing and the reoccurring concept, but so my mother is this fantastic piano player, reads music extraordinarily well, just by sight, you know,
mhm,
just classically trained from the time she was 12, and Um, my stepdad, my father loves music, but he's very tone deaf, but so we always grew up listening. My father loved listening to Heart, Journey,
mm.
Styx, REO Speedwagon,
Sure,
you
sure.
know, classic 80s, like ballads and whatnot, but,
Mhm.
you know,
Power
during
ballads, yeah,
the
yep,
power ballads,
yep,
but during my childhood, it was, we didn't really listen to a lot of music. My mom kinda quit playing piano. I don't know if it had to do with the Baptist thing or if they were just working so hard, you know, but my stepdad had a 6-string guitar, and he played so-so, could play some of the open chords and whatnot. Just kind of picked it up. He was better with harmonies though. And that was something that, he would play the songs that he liked the most, and we would work on harmonies, and that was and in the car we would work on rhymes. So I never really started playing until I was 14. They purchased me this Ovation, which I'm going to tell everyone right now, it is the worst guitar.
It's so hard to play those.
Horrible. They're just rounded.
The
They're
frets.
rounded bodies. Ugh,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
awful. But I started learning, the basic open chords, because you have to sit while playing it. Standing up, it's like it'll just flip
Oh
under.
yeah.
And I started learning some of that, but there was there was a lot going on during my high school years. So I didn't focus very well. But after I graduated high school, I did some moving around, and I always continued to keep up with the chords and whatnot. I thought I wanted to be an actor. That was the thing since I was very young. Mostly because somebody died on screen, and I remember crying, and I told my dad, like, no, they died. And he's like, no, 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 Katie, they're acting. And I was like, what is this magical thing that makes me cry because someone's dying, but then they're not really dying? And so that was something that was exciting for me to kind of escape reality. So I thought I was going to go into musical theater or straight plays or whatever, and it just never panned out. And I did a musical comedy when I was 24 in 2016 called War Virgin. It was the brainchild of Laura Wesley, who was an Iraqi veteran. And it was kind of about the kind of abuse that happens in the military towards women. But she made it into this really, really bizarre musical comedy. Her and Lil Barkowski, who's someone I've worked with frequently throughout my life. And we went up and down the East Coast. It went well. And then just some crazy stuff happened, and we all kind of disbanded. So I moved to Indiana to be close to my mother. And I start working at Buffalo Wild Wings, and I met a couple of guys there, Jason Smith and Kurt Etherton. And I went over to Jason Smith's house one night just to, because he always had the board games and people would come over and play. I might have been drinking, I don't know. And I picked up this ukulele and started making up the song, because that's just what we did as children. We would just make up lines in the car. And I made up some bizarre song about people going to the moon, and it was apparently very funny. I can't remember it. He did record it on his phone, but he was like, I didn't know you could do that. And I was like, I guess I didn't know I could do it either. And him and Kurt had been in a band before called World in White, and it was fairly popular in the area, I guess. From what I hear from the people who are local here, they were like, yeah, we used to go out and watch that band. Like, anytime they'd play, they were a big deal. And they kind of disbanded for personal reasons as well. And Kurt and Jason hadn't done a lot since. They'd been in a couple more bands, but they kind of had given up. And for some reason, they decided that they wanted to start a project with me. And that's where the Randys came to be. Awesome. We were gonna call ourselves Mexican Boyfriend, but it kind of got outvoted. So
probably. Yeah, I think the Randys, I love the name anyway. That's great. So now the Randys, tell everybody what the Randys is. I mean, it's a band, obviously, but
yeah, we're what would I consider us? We originally, one of our friends had dubbed us a intergalactic beach space rock band.
Okay.
But I don't know. I grew up, when I started listening to music again, I started listening to really intense punk rock. So I was listening to, things like Fugazi and Danzig and all that fun stuff. So I really thought that was I was going in that direction. And they had been in a metal band, and that the World in White was kind of a pop punk band. So now that we're all nearing 30 or inner 30s, we started this pop. It's like a pop rock band. I don't know, but that's what the Randys are. We actually we've been a band since 2017. January of 2017 is when we first started kind of recording songs, writing songs together. And we didn't start playing out until 2018 because, like I said before, I learned on an Ovation, and I didn't actually put a lot of effort into actually learning how to play well. My timing was atrocious, and so it took a couple of years for me to really not suck at playing live.
Especially in live formats. When you're standing on stage, it's a hard thing. It's a lot different when you're just sitting on the couch playing,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Or sitting anywhere with an ovation. No, I got rid of that. I sold that.
Yeah, that's a hard. Like I said, I will vouch for that. That's not an easy thing.
No,
Um,
they're
what
basically
what do you not what do you guys sing? Are you doing covers then, or is it what's the
so
forte?
we initially thought that our initial thought was cover bands are sellouts, right? Because they don't write any of their own stuff. They
Yeah.
just they go to play for money and whatnot. And we were always like, we're not a cover band. We're an original band.
Okay.
And then we
That's
realized,
good.
oh wait, we can actually make a whole lot of money if we play covers as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
So last year, not 2020, in 2019, we decided to learn, 20 or so covers to add to our list of 20 or so songs that we have originally. We just haven't recorded them yet because it's kind of expensive, but
Sure.
I'll go into that later, how we
Sure.
kind of adapted around that. But we started playing out and it was actually fantastic. So we actually went on a tour in October, went down through kind of traveled around the lower part of the United States, met a
Mhm.
lot of really great bands. One of my favorites, he's not actually even a band. His name's Todd Mayo, and he was in Texas, and he has a kind of a group called Two Ton Folk. And in California, they were doing a lot of work. And I don't know why he ended up in Texas again, but he was fantastic, really positive support, really nice guy. And we met a lot of really great people too, like I think Men in Motion were in Arkansas, and
Mhm.
just a lot of really interesting. Don't quote me because I might get the names wrong. I'm a
Right.
little dyslexic, but
It's
it
all
was
good.
an amazing experience. We actually did not. We actually broke even and actually made money, which was cool. But we did spend a lot of time sleeping in our van
Mm.
and camping and whatnot. So
Well, sure. Well,
lots of
that's the whole
rendezvous.
experience of it all, right? That's the if you want to call it bonding, but that's some of the best some of the best stories start with that
Yeah.
on the road, and I don't know if everybody's cut out for it. Do you think that what was the main thing that you learned on that experience? What was that brought you to today?
Um, that we weren't charging nearly enough money.
Okay.
That's a
Value
really
is value is a funny thing. As an artist, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're drawing or writing music or drawing, comic books or whatever. If you don't charge properly, or as a contractor, I know as an architectural designer, if you don't charge properly, you're not going to get the recognition. You're not going to get the experience because you're not going to get
right.
the jobs. So yeah, there's an old saying, at least I've heard in Detroit, is if a library card cost $100, everybody would have one.
Mhm.
So I'm like, okay, well, I guess that's a weird way of putting charge what you think your value is.
Yeah, yeah. It
Um, well,
it
how'd
can
you handle COVID then with everything after all that? How did that all happen? You because the bars stopped and all these things happened and
Yeah, we had 30 some shows booked up until May in 2020. We kind of we try to book quarterly,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
the kind of the way to do it. And we had a show that we had a tour planned out. Part of those 30 shows was a tour down to Florida to visit a family friend who was actually an audio engineer for a lot of popular people back in like the 80s, like Madonna and Eric Clapton and stuff like that. And we were going to go hang out with him because he was very sick and he did not make it.
Oh, it's a shame.
But we were going to go and play down there, make some money during the spring break time. And we had all of our shows booked out, and or not booked out, not sold out, but we had every day booked. We were ready to rumble. We are actually going to record down there as well. One of our songs called Monster, which we actually have anyway, and then COVID happened and things got crazy. And so we had to cancel all of the shows. And then we didn't book anymore. I'll tell you though, it was a really enlightening experience. I was having like crazy emotional issues
Like
before then. I
panic
was
attacks,
having
like
like
that kind of stuff, or just stress, or what was?
severe depression.
Yeah.
I had some really terrible stuff happen a couple years ago.
Hmm. Hmm.
Some just a lot, a horrible loss in my family of
Hmm.
just just tragic, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it had not, I hadn't, I still, it actually Friday will be 2 years, and I
That's
still
still, yeah,
haven't.
that's way too soon. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
appreciate you
So, no, I
expressing
mean,
that. But
pushing through it, pretending everything was cool. I knew everyone was tired of me talking about it. So I was like bottling these things up, but I was having some serious issues
mm,
processing through it, even though, we were still playing out. We were still playing, every weekend, practicing 3 days a week, 10 hours a day. I mean, we're nuts. All right.
yeah. Well, you're functioning. You're trying to, you are functioning. They're trying to produce, you're trying to help. And it's, yeah, that's a hard thing.
So I say that COVID was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. I mean, and that's an extraordinarily selfish thing to say, but
Mm,
it definitely it taught me a whole lot of things. And I was working for this. I'm an independent contractor with some of the services I provide, and I work very closely with one company in particular to basically pay my car payment and my bills. Right.
mhm.
When the music doesn't come through, because we funnel a lot of the money we make back in. Really, the Randies, we funnel it all back in so we can buy equipment to
Sure.
afford, pay for our things and then be able to produce better material. So a lot of the money, we don't really make a whole lot of money ourselves because we funnel it all back into the band. So I have my side gig, and I have the company that I work for very closely, Longbar Creative Solutions.
Mhm.
And during COVID, um, it was crazy how much I had to learn and how much everybody really had to learn to adapt into the situation.
Sure.
How do you market yourself if you can't meet people for lunch? How do
Period.
you
That's
advertise?
exactly the truth. Yeah,
Right.
pivoting is a huge part of it, and that's what we talked about earlier. Tell everybody what that was again, the long bar?
Longbar Creative Solutions, yeah, it's a business strategy and development company
Mhm,
that also offers deliverables, which is a bizarre term for me, but it's basically they do website development,
mhm,
business cards, logo development. They also have a publishing company attached called Ghostwriters Network, where if you like, so say someone wanted to write a book,
mhm.
and you're just not quite getting, if the person's not quite getting there, having issues with completing it, or having lots of errors grammatically and whatnot, then we have ghostwriters that will meet and help move the project forward. So it's actually a pretty awesome company. I do enjoy working for them.
Good, good,
Like,
and
yeah.
that's important. That's one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on is because the media, the presence that you've got. One of the things that you talked about earlier, if I can interject for a second, I think we all kind of have problems with authority. So kudos to you. I think that's as a creative, I know that I've always, kind of been, and it could have been being raised in a Catholic school and all that other stuff,
Mm,
strong nuns, all that, but your the one of the things that when Brian K. Morris kind of introduced me to you, and that's
yeah.
something that he's a good friend, and everybody that knows me, I'm part of the whole Rising Tide uh, family, and
Mhm.
he talked about Rebel Kate, and that was something that I think that your YouTube channel, very being the authoritative, not liking the authority, but then naming it marketing wise, I think is brilliant. Rebel Kate was a great name. So, like I said, kudos to you. But how do you, how does that whole media idea, your branding, your thought process, how would you structure something for somebody that's getting into writing books or music or whatever? How would you do that? I know you talked a little bit about video editing and a few of your videos and, sound and all that. How would you start it out if you had to have a new client with Longbow, and what would you do? What would be your take?
So, I mean, I think the major thing that everybody needs to think before they start branching out and start taking on these projects, starting a company or a brand or whatever, is they have to know why they're doing it and who they're doing it for.
Mhm.
A lot of people will say, if you go to before the pandemic, if you
Yeah.
went to a networking meeting and you start out by saying, who are you? Who's your clientele?
Yeah.
Who's your projected audience? And people would be like, everyone.
Yeah. That's
Everyone is not your audience, you know, and in fact, I would, if everyone is your audience, you're doing something wrong because I
Right.
mean, you know, the
Right.
thing about being a, you know, to offer anything, you have to be authentically yourself. And I think that to please everyone, you have to completely deny yourself. I mean, there are people that, you know, that are really empathetic and are very compassionate and very just great at social settings. And, you know, I mean, those happen a lot, but even then, like, you can't please everyone.
No.
So it really is important to know why you're doing it and who you're doing it for. And, you know, obviously, first and foremost, the family motto is save yourself and the world will follow.
Yeah.
So as long as you know why you're doing it for yourself and how you want it to affect other people, then you're good and gravy.
Yeah.
I think when it, you know, when you first start, you really want to put a little bit of your time and your resources into making sure that you have a nice logo. I mean, I made my own just because I like to experiment with things.
Mhm.
It's kind of my shtick. I like to experiment with different concepts.
Yeah.
But you know, really get a logo that makes sense and that looks nice, you know, because people, you know, they say you can't read a book by its cover, but there's a reason that saying exists because people did judge books by their cover, you
Right.
know, like,
And they still do. I mean,
and
even though we say it, right? Yeah.
exactly. And it, you know, that exists because it is a problem. People, you know, we are aesthetically enamored people. We
Mhm.
like to see things that are beautiful, that appeal to us. And, you know, if you have a book and it's amazing, you know, internally, concept, words, you know, character development and whatnot, and you have a cover that looks like you put it through paint, which doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah. Right.
You know, I mean, it's
Right.
gonna, you
Yeah.
might lose your potential audience. And knowing, you know, I mean, and it is kind of it's not a, I don't know, you can you profile someone? Kind of, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
they were talking, I've been working on, kind of helping market, the initial bit of this book called Warm Bodies, 1978, and a book called, Accelerate the Playbook.
Okay.
Very different books. Warm Bodies is about it's based on a true story of a woman that I know. Her name is Dr. Sharon Simpson. And when she was a high schooler, there somewhere in Morgan City, Louisiana, they had some oil rigs. People hired a bunch of dudes to come in and work on it, and one of these dudes happened to be a rapist and serial killer, and he went around and raped and murdered 5 women. To develop a cover for this book, I mean, yes, it's written kind of from the basis of a teenage girl, and you know, if you think teenage girl, you might think, you know, like green, pink, light blues, you know, real effeminate colors,
Yeah.
but it's about murder. So, you
Right.
know,
You
it's
don't
really
wanna yeah, you don't wanna misbrand it, right?
right, right.
You have to put a
So,
big
yeah,
mature audiences only or whatever on there, but, I mean,
right. And really a lot that I think it's important to hire a graphic artist
yeah.
because I mean, you know, it's really good because they can see you in a way that you can't see yourself. Um, and I think it's very important when it comes. I don't know if that kind of that's just the
I
initial.
mean, know your audience, first
Oh,
off. I
your
mean, I
audience.
understand that, and, Dale Carnegie talked about that in college, the whole idea of public speaking. Know who you're speaking to, and it goes without saying in branding, it's the same logic. I'm not going to, uh, sell something to somebody who it's just not in their genre. It's not in their mindset at all, right? It doesn't
Right,
matter if you're in architecture like I was, or if you're, making books or even music. I mean,
yeah,
some people can't stand pop music, and then they
yeah,
go and they do, it doesn't resonate with them, if you want to call it that. No, I
right,
think you're absolutely right. I think that, and I think it's smart that you have some type of artist or some type of graphic person that can get you to the point where you're reaching you're telling the story with the book cover in a way, but you're lending it to for interest to people. I think you're absolutely right on that. I think that there's what is the what's the downside to to what you do with that people don't take your advice? Maybe that's probably
no, no,
no.
absolutely not. I dare people not to take my advice.
Oh, okay.
I think no, they're just not my. they're not my audience. If they don't want to listen to me, then I can't help them.
Yeah.
I can only I there is just too much life to live and too many concepts to test out and too
Mhm.
much to learn for me to be begging someone to like, listen, I'm not a graphic artist. I'm
Mhm.
not saying I am. I'm saying that I recommend people find someone that will work for
Right.
them, make sense for them. But yeah, I don't. I, I had a gentleman, back when I first kind of started doing this kind of business development and strategy work,
Mm.
and he would call me, and the people I was working for, they had made him a deal, and it was out. He didn't like the price. It was actually not a bad price, right?
Mhm.
Especially for what was being offered. But when you initially hear certain numbers, you're like, oh no, you're like, especially
Shock
if it's
factor.
starting out.
Yeah.
But then you have these companies who do it kind of bi-monthly, like payments,
Mhm. Sure.
and they will. I have too much to say about fraudulent companies, but he would
Yeah.
call me and he would say, like, I got these people to do my website, right, and my website, and they're not really listening to me, and they're not really helping me. And I was like, I can talk to them for you to see what's going on. But I think really the problem is that you've picked a company, that this is kind of what they do. They scam people, and in fact, a lot of web development companies that do that kind of thing, where they
Mhm.
they offer you everything like pamphlets. I don't know. It's hard to
Yep.
explain. I don't want to call them out, but
No, but I know what you're saying. There's a
they're
definite can be very scammy if you're not
It
careful. Yeah.
it's like acting agencies, like the ones that
Mhm.
you'll see, like, you know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
like, "Come in and give me $500 a month, and I'll make you a
Oh,
star."
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Mhm.
It's better just to have a set price from the beginning. People that ask for those monthly installments
Mhm.
of, like, just never-ending maintenance, and I
It's a
mean, maintenance is
subscription. Yeah.
normal, but
It
yeah.
yeah. It's
But they owned his domain, so about, a little while ago, the, he found out that they had completely scammed him, and he tried to separate from them, and they wouldn't give him his website. And I always wish, people that I care about well, but I mean, I can't save somebody that, to try to find a cheap, easy way around it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
I
just
get that. I understand it. I think that all our listeners would agree with you on that. I don't think that there's really not an easy way to do that. I mean, and he shouldn't, it's unfortunate because he should have had some type of you always go with your gut. If you don't feel right about something, you should probably not go with them. I know that it's hard though when you're excited, you got, oh, somebody's, yeah, paying attention to me or whatever in business and
Mhm.
that, whether it's a book or what have you.
Yeah,
Well, let's change it just a minute. Let's
sure.
okay, so let's perfect scenario.
Okay.
So I'm your client. Okay, we've got the great brand. We know our audience. We know what we're selling. We've got the perfect product.
Excellent.
Now what? Okay, now we go to media. Now we go to social media. How do you do with your with your what you look for? What's the next step? Okay, so we've got and it is my website. My name is my website, whatever.
Sure.
Okay, so go.
So so the first thing you said, you have an audience. What is your audience? Did you say you have the audience?
We do.
You have
You
the
and I
audience
both have
in
come up
mind?
with an audience that we're
Okay.
working, and then yeah, go
Okay.
from
Is this related to a book, or is
yes, yes.
okay,
So it'll be let's do Ted Davies Artistry. Let's just do a dry run. Okay,
okay.
so Ted Davies Artistry, we got the right branding, we
Mhm.
got the right logo. It's easy on the eyes, whatever.
Okay.
A little cheesy, that's okay. Brian says good morning, by the way. Brian Morris is in the
Oh,
house.
I love Brian. He's so
Um, and so is Carl, and we got Aaron Dowan, one of my I consider him a good friend now. He's a graphic artist, so he's listening in on marketing and branding.
cool.
Um, okay, so we've got this all set up. We know our market. It's going to be, between ages of 30 and 50, guys that are, into comic books, girls that are into comic books,
Sure.
and it's a very comic book oriented group, and they're at sci-fi and, all the nerdy stuff. And now we've got to set up a website. So now we got teddaviesartistry.com. What do we do? What's the first thing? We do an Instagram? Do we do DeviantArt, what do you think we should structure?
Oh, I haven't heard DeviantArt in a long time.
I'm
I'm
just
out
saying in general, yeah, just,
no,
yeah.
it's all right. I'm out of the, I'm out of that niche currently, so it's
Yeah.
but I used to spend a lot of time there. Okay, so the idea is we have to initially set a goal of, so I like to set a goal of how many things I want to either sell or how many new names I want to get on a list, for marketing purposes, right? I love Instagram. I think it's really awesome, but really the only thing you're gonna be able to do there is either post quotes from your book, post like 15-second scrolls of your website, photos of people posting pictures of their books. Because it is a picture-based platform, you are limited to kind of what you can put in an image, because the text at the bottom is literally worthless except for your
Yeah.
hashtags.
Yep.
I hate Twitter. I always
Yeah.
have hated Twitter only
Yep.
because, I mean, the demographic is based, I'm sorry, the sun's coming in all weird.
It's all good. No, that's good.
So
That's fine.
Twitter's kind of a weird thing because it generally is more, people care more about Twitter if it's a celebrity, somebody who's already made it, right?
Yeah.
Getting interaction on Twitter is
Very hard.
a
Yeah.
nightmare. Yeah, it's a horrible platform. Like, the demographic is super low. I don't even know how they stay. I don't even know how they stay afloat.
It becomes shock factor. But yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Kind of a news outlet, right? So
Yeah.
you can have a Twitter, definitely do. It's, because it is still a major platform, but it's very difficult to market on there. Pinterest is bizarre, mostly because
I'll give you that. I will give you that.
75% of the people on there are female. But they do also, their demographic usually makes over $75,000 a year. So they're generally women in a higher tax bracket who have a little bit more money to spend, right? So if you are, but you said 30 to 50.
Yeah, well, I'm just in general, right? Right.
Men generally, that was kind of, and women too. But the comic book scene, I would say, Facebook is awesome because it's kind of like, it's a modern day phone directory with extra information, right? I mean, heck, the government uses it to track us anyway. So you can really use Facebook to extend that audience. There are different groups. So I would start by finding groups that, I don't know what the content of the book, but you find groups that have similar interest towards the content of the book that you have developed or the brand that you have developed, right? It's important to socialize because social media it's not an advertisement. And that's a thing about Facebook ads. Though I do like to experiment with them, I find them to be tremendously useless because who likes to open up their social media account and then see an ad?
Right.
It's
I'm with you on that.
disturbing, but they are fun to do because then you can kind of see what people click on,
Right.
But I think that really using social media as a platform to actually communicate and meet new people is the most important thing. If you just go and start posting things, right? You post the name of your book, you post the name of, you say something about your brand, you put a nice image in there, images are worth 1,000 words. So make it nice and clean and beautiful. And then nobody comments on it. You're posting for yourself at that point.
Yeah.
To increase your algorithm, if you have 1,000 friends, 10% of the people on there, that is the algorithm, 10% are going to see your the post in their feed. You're missing 900 friends in this potential, right?
Right.
And I mean, they did this, it's been about 5 or 6 years. I'm not exactly sure on the timeline, but they did this because it used to be based on who posts last. So it was kind of, you'll see these things like post on Facebook between 4 and 6, and then that would be great. It's not how it works anymore. It's people who follow you the most. So basically, you're just reposting to the same people.
Same people.
So
how do you change that? How do
you
you?
your algorithm? You go into groups and you literally you comment on people's things that you've never seen before. You be authentic with your comments. Don't just say things like, this is incredible, I love this.
Great content. Yeah.
Actual input.
Yeah.
And you'll be amazed on how many people will, being authentic and giving actual, it's like if you, so say, also with books, always get on Goodreads.
Yeah.
Always make sure you have, anyone who reads your book, make sure they give a nice, or not a nice rating, an honest rating. honesty is always good because you can get 5-star ratings and people be like, this is so great. I love this. 5-star ratings are that's like the
Yeah,
scariest thing for me,
it's too
like
generic. Yeah.
way too
Yeah.
generic. So the idea you get on and use social media for what it is by meeting new people. And the best way to kind of sort through people that will be effective, who are also equally as determined to get that kind of interaction. When you go to add people, or different pages or businesses, see how many likes they have on their page, see
Mhm.
what kind of interaction they're having, because and I'm not saying this. The thing about social media is it's completely fake, right? Nobody's
Yeah.
real on there. Just because somebody doesn't have a like or any interaction on a post does not make them devalued as a human, right? But if they're not getting interaction, then then they may not be able to. It's not necessarily going to create a circle that will help increase your algorithm.
Okay.
You want to just honestly, the best way to start, go on, comment with different people, interact with human
Okay.
beings.
So build the thread on a common ground with authenticity is what you're saying. Okay, and that's
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
That's really good. How does with all of it, and I know how important YouTube is right now.
I love
Where
YouTube.
where are you? Okay, so now we've got this idea for Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
Mhm.
Brian says, in Twitter's atmosphere right now makes Facebook look like a prayer meeting in a convent. Avoid it
Twitter,
like it's got
um,
cooties, is what he said. So,
you just don't get on it. It's just weird.
it's an odd thing. I don't it's kind of like a black hole. I don't even I have one, but I don't even use it anymore. So now that we've got everything else with Instagram and we're working all these other things, now we got YouTube. Okay, so now how do we handle the YouTube not mess, but how do we handle the YouTube algorithms with Facebook and everything else is its own platform and Instagram its own on
Mhm.
and on. I mean, it's very confusing, and for
YouTube.
a newbie, somebody
YouTube.
could really be.
I love
What would be your avenue for attack on that? Since we've got the branding and everything else.
So the great thing about YouTube is it is the second most used search engine on the internet next to Google. I mean, YouTube is incredible. There's some weird stuff like going on in the like political atmosphere that I
Yeah,
don't even care about because YouTube, I mean, it's its own social network.
yeah,
And I
it's
think
a utility. I mean, yeah,
I've learned so much.
mhm,
I learned how to fix my car off of YouTube. I learned how to make a weed eater work. I mean, it's an incredible place where real people go and give real information. It's an
yeah,
encyclopedia for life. It's amazing. Now, the best way to go about really increasing your YouTube, I see, and I have so many other projects that I'm working on right now that I don't spend the time doing this because, I mean, it takes a little bit of
sure it
effort,
does,
right?
sure,
Same concept though, create authentic comments on other users that you find are exceptional,
mhm,
right? I mean, because you can go and you can like all kinds of things. The best thing to do is to really build that circle on YouTube. Find the
mhm,
people and the concepts that really interest you. Go and comment. Develop friends based on YouTube. It's a little different because you can't
or
just go and have conversations on YouTube. It's a little weird to do that in the comments. But, subscribe to the people you like on your page. There's a featured thing. Feature the people that you like the most. I think you can have as many as you want. For the Randys, I usually put featured bands. If we've played with a band and I thought that they were nice people and I liked them, I'll feature them on our page. You
that's a good avenue. See, I wouldn't have thought of that. I used like Ted's Tribe on my website. I do that so everybody that I'm involved with, Ted's
know,
Tribe kind of sits. So I'll do that. That's a good one.
you can
See, I
also
learned something today. See, you're amazing. There you
Oh,
go.
thanks. I've been dabbling in a whole lot of things in the last few months, so I've learned a lot of techniques that are really important, especially like filling out your initial posting on your YouTube. You
Yeah.
can put hashtags in your title.
Mhm.
You can put tags at the bottom. So say like you haven't you have a different way of referring to your brand, or you have a name. You put those names in. The idea as well is to beat the person that had a similar name before you, right?
Right.
So if I put in the Randys right now, I think we might be the first people that come up. I'm not sure, but people named Randy who might have 2 million views. they're going to come up first,
Yeah.
and that's just the way of life. It's all about, you just have to make sure that your content and your product is beautiful and wonderful. People will catch on eventually, right?
Yeah. I agree.
But I'm making sure that all of that's filled out appropriately is really important, and making sure that the community itself, that you're interacting with them as well.
Yeah,
Um,
it's legit. And yeah,
yeah.
everybody's, yeah. Brian says, and make the message sound like yourself. That's why
Yeah,
I changed my monthly newsletter from totally text to delivering my main message via video, where it
yeah,
will be definitely be in my voice. So
absolutely.
I get
I'm
that.
I am also a huge fan of video. I think video is super important, especially because of the way that the people's brains work now, that we've accustomed ourselves to quick information. Reading long text can be
Daunting. Yeah.
draining. Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm
And
not
I don't,
really saying that text doesn't matter, because books are everything, but
right.
on the
Well,
internet.
no, you're right, though. I think that I know that we're getting a little bit tight on time.
Oh, right.
I wanted to finish once we're okay. So now that we've got this branding set up and everything else, and we've got the YouTube channel now, is it what would you do if would you do live or would you do video edit? What would be your perfect scenario for a client? For me, time wise, live is making more sense for me because I got so many other things going on. If the dog barks or whatever else, it's what it is,
Yeah, it
when it's
depends.
live and
It dep
it's active right away. But I like still doing videos that I edit out and add text and all,
Mhm.
music. So
I prefer video only if you have a time limit. So anything under 20 minutes,
yeah, I
I
got you.
I really honestly, I think more video editing is for short things, right?
Mm,
What you're doing here is, it's a live interview podcast. I mean, if we edit too much of this out, we might be left with little to work with.
right, right,
Although, just like then I said, right, which can
right.
be it can be really off-putting for a lot of people. It kind of
If
shows.
it's repeated over and over again during the course of it, yeah.
Yeah, it really shows my lack of background in speech, you know what I mean? That's kind of why I like to edit, because some people are even worse than I am, and I edit, a podcast called "Let Your Shit Out," and
It's
sorry, but
great.
yeah,
No, that's great. No, that's great.
yeah,
Everybody listen to that. You make sure you're on there. So yeah,
yeah,
we'll
and if anybody wants to be on it, we're taking guest, positions.
cool.
That goes for you too, Ted. Um,
Awesome.
but, a
Yeah.
lot of the times it's not about them saying, sometimes they get into some weird content and you're like, "We can't put this on the internet.
Yeah.
Like, this
Yeah.
cannot go up right now. We
Yeah.
will get flagged and shut down." So, it really depends on whatever you're trying to promote. So, live videos, great. Edited videos, fantastic for marketing purposes. It's just about, you just have to figure it out, and it's all about creating that broad vision board of strategy for whatever your brand is.
Yeah.
So,
And we've been talking about this for a while. Being authentic is so important. You can only be fake for so long. You can you can fake it till you make it has been a mantra for a lot of people for many many years, and we always talk about being the imposter syndrome,
mhm,
and I think we all have that. I think as creatives we all do. We're all playing that ovation guitar, you know what I mean, on stage.
yeah,
You know what I mean? We're all that, and
yeah,
that's I my biggest concern is that I want to make sure that people know when they're setting up their businesses when there's a wealth of knowledge out there.
mm,
YouTube has been such a godsend,
mm,
like you were saying, fixing your car, doing things, publishing, you name it, website design, on and on and
yeah,
on. The the biggest thing that you have brought, at least to this meeting, is some clarity. And I think that being authentic, knowing your audience, trying to facilitate it so that your algorithms are you're being part of the process versus having the process work for you is
mhm,
good. It's a very good segue. Um, Aaron Down says, or the host says something insane and the guests are at loss for words. So, and I've seen that before where they're live and they don't know what to say or the person's gone way off. How
yeah,
do you how do you handle irate customers in closing? How do you handle? Have you had any experiences with people that are just a little off the mark?
mhm, yes, yes, I have. Um, I think, I'm extraordinarily forgiving. Well, no, that's not true. Like I said, I don't deal well. I don't deal well with lying. I don't deal well with false personality types. I don't deal with backstabbing very well. And the best thing I can be a very angry person when it comes to betrayal or horrible people, right? People that act horribly. It doesn't make them a bad person, but it definitely makes them acting horrible, right? But I think that the best thing I ever learned, my mentor, Will Barkowski, had a client that was very bad to her and said something very terrible, discredited her work, all that fun stuff. And she finally just said, "You know what? Okay, we're done. Go with God. Be well." Hung up the phone, never talked to her again, got the money out of her. The best thing to do with people who don't respect your time is to wish them well,
Yeah.
because I've been in places where I've been less than pleasant, and I think that it's really important to not sink to a level of of just,
Of that.
bad
Yeah.
behavior. Yeah, it's just not worth it. Cut them loose, though. If someone is not respecting you, cut them loose. Don't.
Have your self-respect intact. Yeah, I agree with that. Curating is something I've always talked about on my media. Curating's so important, whether it's trolls, whether it's disrespectful people. Yeah,
Mhm.
cut them loose.
Yeah.
The everybody's evil in somebody's story. You know what I mean? So we've all made mistakes. We've all been in a situation that we probably wouldn't want to have been in. And maybe didn't handle it the way that we should have. But that doesn't mean that we have to be stepped on, and that's something that I know in business, it's a hard thing because see, people think, oh, I deserve that. I deserve it. It's karma for me because not necessarily.
No.
So that's good. That's a real good way to, I think, to end what I consider a really, really good, informative conversation.
Awesome.
So where can everybody find you? I mean, where can we get more media presence?
Well, you can go on Facebook. My employers will be really happy about this one. Longbar Creative Solutions, or you can go to www.longbarcreatives.com. You can find the Randys on www.therandysband.com, or just go on Facebook. We're on there too. Um, Although we're a mysterious bunch of people, we don't post as much as a lot of people would hope, but we have a lot of interesting things coming out. COVID's been fantastic for learning how to record really nice stuff. We've learned how to use some really great
I
systems.
imagine it has been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We actually just recorded a cover of The Sweet. You were asking actually earlier before we started about the fox head on my profile picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
We recorded Fox on the Run for this thing called Bad Ash Booking. They had a COVID
Great name. What a
yeah.
great name.
So yeah, they're a pretty interesting group of people. But we just did a cover of Fox on the Run. The music video actually has all three of us wearing the fox head, and I just edited us into it. In fact, people actually try to buy it off of me. I'm like, you can't have my fox head. Get out of here.
Right. It's cool. The picture, if anybody's watching, when you see the profile picture, you'll understand.
Yeah.
It looks like it looks like a painting, and then you look at it again, like she's actually wearing this faux fox head. Anyway,
Yeah.
now are the Randys on YouTube or is that on
Oh,
your
yeah.
station? Or what?
Yeah, youtube.com/the Randys. We actually own it now, which is cool. And
Awesome.
another thing about YouTube, get your username. You have to get 100 subscribers
Right.
to get
Right.
it. But
That's
it's
the goal right off the bat. Yeah.
worth it.
Yep.
Definitely just push
Totally.
it.
Totally worth it.
Yeah,
And
but we're
Brian was instrumental as well as all the Nevermorians getting me over to 100, and literally a day it was boom, it was like
great.
we put the word out and yeah, and so that was, and he's been growing exponentially the last few weeks. And
Yeah,
he's such a good guy.
totally. And
Brian's,
yeah,
everybody that's on here knows, you know. And Brian says that he says he loves your band. It's his favorite band, one of his favorite bands. So, and
thanks, Brian.
yeah, and he's, I can't say enough about it. You guys understand now a little bit why I wanted to have Katelyn on here because, um, there's always room for improvement, and you never know where you're going to learn it from, and that's something that this is why we do Ted Davies Artistry interviews, because there might be a tidbit of information, you know. Being authentic, I think, without a doubt, is probably the most paramount thing you can do.
Yeah,
But to get your algorithms up and with threading and everything else that you're talking about,
yep,
definitely something I would look into and look into media development. Teaming up with Caitlin, because I think this might be something that whether you do books or what have you. I mean, there's always room for improvement to build your business and your branding.
And I
So I
think
appreciate you big
thank
time,
you.
Caitlin. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Um, so I'm stick around for a second. I'm going to end the broadcast here,
Sure.
and I will be right back with you
All right.
in 1 sec. Yep. Well, now you understand, guys. Caitlin is a force to be reckoned with, and I think that you guys are going to learn a little bit more over the course of the year with her. I'm going to bring her back on once we know a little bit more about the other things that are happening in 2021 for her band and YouTube and the media things that she's doing. So, but at least you know a little bit more about her today. So I appreciate your time. No envy, no fear. Make sure you guys are staying healthy. Be safe out there. And, I appreciate everybody listening in on these live events. Thanks so much.